Before humanity drew its first breath, Earth belonged to a forgotten race, the majestic Jann. They ruled in harmony until darkness crept in. Injustice exploded, cruelty reigned. Then came divine wrath. An angelic army descended, led by the most brilliant among them, Azazil, the devoted genius who taught angels secrets of the heavens. He crushed evil, built an empire of light, but pride whispered his doom. This is the hidden saga of the being who became shaytan, before the curse, before the rebellion. Welcome to Religions Explained. Hit subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on notifications, because this truth will shake your soul. Let's dive in. Imagine a time before the first human footprint ever pressed into the soil of Earth. No cities of stone, no prophets walking among men, no Adam, no Hawa. Only vast, untouched continents bathed in an otherworldly light. This was the dominion of the Jann, a primordial race forged by Allah from smokeless fire long before the creation of mankind. They were not the jinn we know today. They were something greater, something older. Majestic beings of pure flame and shadow, towering, radiant, capable of shifting forms, traversing realms, and wielding powers that would make modern humans tremble in awe. The Quran hints at their existence in Surah Ar-Rahman. Before that, we created the Jann from smokeless fire. But Islamic tradition and the narrations of the early scholars go deeper. They tell us the Jann numbered in countless tribes, 70,000 tribes, some say, scattered across mountains that touched the clouds, oceans that glowed within a fire, and skies that were not our skies. They built crystalline palaces that floated between realms. They carved rivers of liquid light through the earth. They sang praises to Allah in harmonies no human ear has ever heard. For millennia, they lived in perfect submission. Their purpose was clear: to worship their Creator, to know Him, to reflect His majesty in every act. Free will was granted to them, just as it would later be granted to us. And for ages, uncounted, they chose obedience. But perfection is fragile. Slowly, so slowly that even the stars seemed not to notice, a shadow began to lengthen across their hearts. This is only the beginning. What happens when the most devoted servant begins to believe his own legend? What happens when the one who crushed corruption becomes corrupted himself? Stay with us. The fall is coming, and it will shock you to your core. If this chapter opened your eyes, smash that like button right now. It helps spread these hidden truths. Subscribe to Religions Explained and hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Comment below. Do you think pride was already growing in Azazil even during his greatest victory? Tell us your thoughts. He wouldn't destroy them with a flood, or an earthquake, or a plague. No, he would send an army of angels, pure, obedient, unstoppable. And leading them was a being unlike any other, a Jann who had risen above all his kind in devotion and knowledge, so close to the divine. His name was Azazil. Even the angels revered him. It's said he taught them secrets of the unseen realms and explained the meanings of Allah's names. His worship was so intense, the heavens themselves seemed to echo his praise. So, Allah elevated him. He was permitted to ascend through the heavens, spending centuries at each level, worshipping, learning, drawing ever nearer to the throne. For thousands of years he rose, until he stood in the gardens of paradise itself. When the command came to cleanse the earth of the corrupt Jann, it was Azazil who was chosen to lead the heavenly host. Picture it. Legions of angels descending in formations of blinding light, their swords of divine fire ready. He was more than a leader, he was a legend. And at the forefront, Azazil himself, shining brighter than them all, his form a perfect fusion of flame and celestial radiance. The battle was cataclysmic. Mountains shattered, oceans boiled. The sky itself seemed to tear open as the forces of corruption clashed with the forces of purity. But the outcome was never in doubt. One by one, the rebellious tribes fell. The tyrants were cast down. The oppressors were driven from the face of the earth into distant wastelands and unseen dimensions. When the dust, or rather the ashes, settled, earth was silent once more. Peace returned. Azazil stood victorious. Allah rewarded him beyond measure. The surviving righteous Jann were placed under his authority. A new order of angels was created to dwell upon the earth and guard it. And over them all, over the remaining Jann and the earthly angels, Azazil was made ruler. He built what can only be described as an empire of light. Cities of translucent crystal rose again, but now in perfect harmony with Allah's will. Rivers flowed with mercy instead of wrath. Every soul under his care worshipped with renewed fervor. Azazil walked among them as both king and teacher. He held gatherings where angels and Jann alike sat at his feet, drinking from the ocean of knowledge Allah had granted him. He was beloved, admired, almost worshipped, though he would never allow it. He seemed untouchable, unshakable, unchanging. But pride is the sneakiest of all poisons. It doesn't announce its arrival with trumpets or fanfare. No, it creeps in quietly, in whispers. It comes in those silent moments right after a great victory. You see it in the awe-filled glances from those who look up to him. It starts as a tiny thought, almost insignificant, but it lingers and grows. I deserve this. I earned this. How could anyone possibly ever surpass me? And just like that, the seed was planted. A seed that one day would sprout into the greatest tragedy creation had ever seen. But for now, the empire stood magnificent and glorious. For now, Azazil was still the unwavering champion of justice. And for now, he was still called by his beautiful name, Azazil. We'll be back with more of this story, so make sure you subscribe. Second heaven. Walls of emerald and pearl, where the air itself hummed with remembrance. Angels here guarded the scrolls of decrees yet to unfold. Azazil sat with them, explaining the hidden wisdom in Allah's names. Al-Rahman, Al-Rahim, Al-Malik, Al-Qudus. His voice carried such depth that even the ancient guardians of those scrolls paused their eternal duties to listen. Another 300 years passed in unbroken devotion. Third heaven. Gardens suspended in light, rivers flowing upward toward unseen sources. The fragrance alone could make a soul forget every sorrow. Azazil walked these gardens barefoot, his form glowing brighter with each step. Angels of higher rank approached him now, not as a teacher, but as one who had earned their reverence. They asked questions only the closest servants could answer. He answered with humility, or so it seemed. 300 more years. Fourth heaven, a realm of pure white light so intense that lesser beings would dissolve in it. Here dwelt angels, whose sole purpose was perpetual prostration. Azazil joined them, day after day, though day has no meaning here. He remained in sajda, forehead to a floor that was not floor, praising Allah with words no tongue of clay could pronounce. His worship intensified, his form became almost translucent with nur, divine light. Fifth heaven, the heaven of restraint and awe. Massive angels stood as sentinels, each wing covering horizons. They spoke only when commanded, yet when Azazil arrived, they bowed their massive heads in salute. He taught them subtleties of Tawhid they had never contemplated. They marveled, how does one created from fire know such secrets of the unseen? He smiled, a smile of quiet pride. 300 years, the earth had been cleansed. The corrupt Jann, scattered like ashes on the wind, peace, true, radiant peace, blanketed the world once more. And Azazil stood at the pinnacle of creation's gratitude. Allah, the most generous, does not leave the deeds of his servants unrewarded, especially not one whose worship had burned brighter than the fire from which he was made. The command came directly from the throne. Raise him, not just in honor, not just in station. Raise him through the heavens themselves. Azazil was granted what no other Jann and few angels had ever received. Passage through the seven heavens level by level, with permission to dwell in each for centuries, worshipping, learning, drawing ever closer to the divine presence. Imagine the journey. He stayed 300 years, not out of obligation, but out of love. Each tasbih felt like drawing nearer to the one he adored. Then, the ascent continued. He stood at the edge of paradise, yet the greatest danger was not below him on earth. It was already inside him. What happens when the most exalted servant begins to see himself as more than a servant. The story is about to turn dark. If this chapter stirred something in your soul, the beauty of devotion, the danger of hidden pride, then like this video right now. He stood at the edge of paradise. Yet the greatest danger was not below him on earth, it was already inside him. What happens when the most exalted servant begins to see himself as more than a servant? The story is about to turn dark. If this chapter stirred something in your soul, the beauty of devotion, the danger of hidden pride, then like this video right now. It helps these forgotten truths reach more hearts. Subscribe to Religions Explained and hit the bell.